Every Sunday, my boyfriend's daughter asked me the same question in the same hopeful voice. Can you take me to the movies today? She always said it was so her dad could have nap time. She always said Sundays were important. And for months, I believed her. I thought I was being kind. I thought I was being stable. I thought I was stepping into a role that mattered. I didn't know I was being scheduled out of my own house. That last Sunday, I remember tying my shoes while she bounced near the door, already excited. Her small fingers tugged at my sleeve, her eyes bright, trusting. I grabbed my keys, popcorn money, the usual routine. I didn't question it anymore. I hadn't for weeks. The movie was loud and harmless. Talking animals, bright colors, laughter echoing through the theater. She leaned against me, sugar on her fingers, completely safe. Afterward, we got ice cream. It was late by the time we drove home, later than usual. I remember thinking her dad would probably be awake by now. The house was quiet when we walked in, too quiet. I called out that we were home. No answer. My chest tightened, that subtle instinctive pull, the one you try to ignore because it feels dramatic. I told myself he was sleeping. I told myself I was imagining things. Then I heard it, from upstairs, from my bedroom. Sounds that had nothing to do with rest. My heart didn't race. It dropped. Heavy, cold. Like my body already knew before my mind caught up. I told the little girl to stay downstairs to finish her ice cream. She nodded, distracted, trusting me the way she always had. Each step upstairs felt unreal. My hand shook when I reached the door. It was slightly open. Inside, in my bed, in my house, my boyfriend was with another woman. A neighbor. I stood there, silent, watching a reality I hadn't consented to. The weight of it pressed into my lungs. Months of Sundays suddenly rearranged themselves in my head, snapping into place like a cruel pattern. When I cleared my throat, they froze. That was the moment everything ended. Not with screaming, not with chaos, but with the quiet understanding that I had been lied to in the most calculated way possible, and that a child had been used to make it happen. And once you see something like that, you can never unsee it. When I met him, I wasn't looking to rescue anyone. I had already built my life into something steady, something that belonged to me. I bought my house 5 years before I ever knew his name. It wasn't a dream home or a flex, just a solid place in a quiet neighborhood, paid for with years of discipline and routine. My name on the deed, my mortgage, my responsibility. I liked knowing that no matter what happened in my life, I had one thing that was unquestionably mine. We met almost 2 years ago through mutual friends. Nothing dramatic, no sparks flying across a crowded room, just conversation that felt easy. He was older than most men I'd dated, quieter, more grounded. He talked about work, about fixing things, about being tired in a way that came from responsibility, not chaos. He told me early on that he had a daughter, 9 years old. Her mother wasn't in the picture, had left years ago, vanished into the category of parents who technically exist but don't actually show up. He didn't frame himself as a hero. He didn't ask for sympathy. He just said it like it was his reality. That impressed me. I admired men who stayed when leaving would have been easier. The first time I met his daughter, she was cautious, polite, but guarded. She watched me like she was waiting to see whether I would disappear the way others had. I didn't force anything. I didn't try to win her over. I treated her like a small human who deserved space and consistency. Over time, she relaxed. She started sitting closer to me on the couch, asking questions, bringing me drawings she'd made. When she finally asked if I'd take her to the movies one weekend, it felt like trust, not obligation. About 10 months into the relationship, his lease ended. He didn't ask directly at first, just mentioned how expensive places were getting, how hard it was to find something decent with a kid. I offered eventually, not out of pressure, but because it felt reasonable. You and your daughter can stay with me, I said, until you figure things out. It was supposed to be temporary. He moved in with a few suitcases, boxes of clothes, his daughter's books and toys. The house adjusted slowly, like it was learning new rhythms. I made space, cleared a closet, rearranged shelves. I didn't make it feel like they were guests, but I never pretended it wasn't my home. He knew that. I was clear about it. There was no lease, no rent. He contributed when he could, groceries, utilities sometimes, but the house itself was mine. I didn't hold that over his head. I didn't need to. Ownership wasn't a weapon to me. It was just a fact. At first, things worked. Weeknights were quiet, homework at the table, dinner together. He wasn't expressive, but he showed up in practical ways, fixing things, being present, handling his responsibilities without drama. He didn't cry. He didn't overtalk emotions. He just existed steadily. I mistook that for honesty. Looking back, there were small signs I dismissed. How defensive he got when I asked about his day. How protective he was of his phone. How he liked routines that kept everyone predictable and contained. And then there were Sundays. At the time, I thought they were harmless. His daughter asking me to take her out. Him appreciating quiet time. Me feeling useful, included, trusted. I didn't understand yet that stability can be manufactured, and that sometimes the house you're proud of owning becomes the stage for someone else's deception. I believed I was building something with him. I didn't realize I was being positioned out of my own home, one Sunday at a time. The first thing that felt off didn't arrive like a warning. It arrived like a routine. Every Sunday morning, without fail, his daughter would appear near the kitchen while I was pouring coffee. Same timing, same careful tone, like she was following instructions she didn't fully understand. "Can we go to the movies today?" At first, I smiled. Sundays were easy. Movies kept her happy, got her out of the house, gave her dad some quiet time. It felt harmless, productive even. I told myself this was what being supportive looked like. But then it became every Sunday. No variation, no flexibility. If I suggested Saturday instead, she shook her head immediately. "No, it has to be Sunday. Dad needs his nap." The phrasing bothered me more than it should have. Not wants, needs. Like it was scheduled, mandatory. One week I suggested the park. Another week, I floated the idea of staying home and ordering pizza. Each time, her reaction was the same. Anxious, tight, almost rehearsed. "But Dad said movies would be good," she insisted once. "He said the house needs to be quiet." That was the moment I paused, because he hadn't said anything to me. That evening, while we were cleaning up dinner, I mentioned it casually. I wasn't accusing. I wasn't suspicious yet, just curious. "Hey," I said, "why does she always want Sunday movies specifically?" He looked up from his phone faster than necessary. "I don't know," he said. "Kids like routine." I shrugged. "I guess. It's just every Sunday." His jaw tightened. "Is it a problem that you spend time with my daughter?" he asked. There it was, the shift. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about a pattern. It was about my intentions, my character, whether I was being selfish for even asking. "No," I said quickly. "Of course not." "Then why are you questioning it?" he pushed. The room went quiet. I could feel the conversation closing, like a door being gently but firmly shut. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't emotional. He didn't need to be. His tone made it clear that continuing would turn me into the villain. So I let it go. That was my mistake. From that point on, Sundays ran with mechanical precision. Shoes, keys, theater, snacks, ice cream if time allowed. I stopped suggesting alternatives because the resistance made me feel unreasonable. Meanwhile, he grew more protective of his quiet time. Bedroom door closed. Phone always within reach. If I texted while I was out, responses came late. Short, functional. I told myself he was tired, that men handled stress differently, that he wasn't someone who talked things through. He dealt with problems internally. That explanation fit the version of him I trusted. But something in the house felt different on Sundays, like the walls were holding their breath until I left, like the quiet he needed wasn't just rest, it was absence. The realization came slowly, settling in my chest like a weight. This wasn't about bonding time, it wasn't about naps. It was about predictability, about knowing exactly when I wouldn't be home. And once that thought took root, I couldn't shake it, because patterns don't form by accident, and children don't invent rules like that on their own. By the time I understood that Sundays were engineered, not organic, the truth was already waiting upstairs. I just didn't know it yet. That Sunday unfolded exactly like all the others, until it didn't. His daughter showed up while I was slipping on my jacket, already holding her shoes. Same timing. Same hopeful look, like this was the safest part of her week. "Can we go to the movies today?" I said yes without thinking. Habit had taken over. I grabbed my keys, my bag, checked that I had enough cash. He barely looked up when we left. "Have fun," he said, already retreating toward the bedroom. The movie was loud and harmless. Talking animals, bright colors. She laughed, leaned into my side when the theater got cold. I bought popcorn, extra butter, like she liked it. Afterward, she begged for ice cream, and I agreed. It felt wrong to say no to a kid who hadn't done anything wrong. We got home later than usual. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed his car was still there. That should have been comforting. Instead, something tightened in my chest. The house was quiet when we walked in. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. "We're home," I called out. No answer. I told his daughter to put her ice cream in the freezer and wash her hands. She nodded, already distracted by the TV. I didn't want her upstairs. I didn't know why yet. I just knew. Then I heard it. From upstairs, from my bedroom. The sound wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Human. Intimate. Completely wrong. My body reacted before my thoughts caught up. Heat flushed through me, then drained away. My hands went cold. I stood there for a second, staring at the staircase, my heart beating slow and heavy, like it was bracing for impact. I told myself there had to be an explanation. I took one step, then another. Halfway up, denial became impossible. My bedroom door was cracked open. Inside, in my bed, in the house I owned, my boyfriend was with another woman. The neighbor. The woman who lived 3 houses down. The one I'd waved to. The one with a husband and 2 teenagers. The familiarity made it worse. The disrespect layered on itself. They didn't hear me at first. I stood there for a few seconds, long enough for everything to rearrange itself in my mind. The Sundays, the insistence, the rules, the silence. I cleared my throat, loud. They froze. He scrambled back, panic flashing across his face. She grabbed the sheets, her expression flipping from pleasure to terror in a heartbeat. He fumbled for his clothes, knocked into the nightstand, swore under his breath. "Get out," I said. My voice was calm. That surprised me. "Both of you, now." The neighbor grabbed her clothes and bolted past me, half-dressed, shoes in her hand. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word, just ran. Coward. He stayed seated, stunned, like consequences hadn't been part of the plan. "Wait," he said, "this isn't—" "Get out of my room," I cut in. He tried again. "We can talk about this." "No," I said, "you can pack." That's when his shock turned into calculation. He stammered, tried to slow things down, like this was a misunderstanding instead of a system. I asked him how long it had been going on. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "How long have you been using your daughter to get me out of my own house so you could sleep with her?" I asked. He had the nerve to look offended. "Don't bring my daughter into this." "You brought her into this," I said. "You turned Sundays into a schedule." He tried to minimize it, said it wasn't like that, said it just happened. I counted out loud. 4 months, 16 Sundays. 16 times. He didn't deny it. Something hardened in me then, not anger, but certainty. "Pack your things," I said. "You're leaving." "You can't just kick us out," he snapped. "This is our home." "No," I said quietly. "It's mine." Downstairs, his daughter sat on the couch, ice cream melting, completely unaware that her routine had been built on lies. My chest ached when I looked at her. None of this was her fault. But I also knew, without hesitation, that this couldn't continue for another night. I stepped into the hallway, pulled out my phone, and called a lawyer. Because once you understand how deliberately you've been removed from your own life, there's no going back to pretending. After I ended the call, I didn't move right away. I stood in the hallway, phone still in my hand, listening to the television downstairs spill out cartoon laughter like nothing had happened. My house felt unfamiliar, like the walls were watching, waiting to see what I would do next. He came downstairs about 20 minutes later, dressed, composed. His eyes were red, but not in a way that suggested tears. More like irritation, like he'd been rubbing them too hard. He hovered near the armchair, unsure where he fit now. "We need to talk about this like adults," he said. I didn't look at him immediately. "Adults don't cheat in their partner's bed," I replied, my voice even, "and they don't use their child to make it possible." He sat down anyway, too close. I shifted away without thinking. The movement wasn't dramatic, it was automatic, protective. "I made a mistake," he said. "But you can't just throw us out. My daughter lives here." That sentence landed wrong, heavy, manipulative. "Your daughter shouldn't have been turned into a tool," I said. "Don't put this on her." "I'm not blaming her," he snapped quickly. "You're the one bringing her into it." "I'm bringing up what you did," I said. "You're the one who turned Sundays into an operation." He leaned forward, softened his tone like this was a negotiation. "Think about her," he said. "She's settled here. Her school is nearby. This is her home." I finally met his eyes. "You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with the neighbor." Something in his face shifted, the realization that this wasn't going to be smoothed over, that I wasn't going to absorb the damage quietly. "So that's it?" he asked. 2 years and you're done?" "You cheated on me," I said. "Repeatedly. You planned it. You used your kid to make sure I wasn't here." "It wasn't planned like that," he said quickly. "Then why was it always Sunday?" I asked. "Why was it always movies?" He didn't answer. Silence filled the room, thick and final. You can't just decide this is over, he said finally. We're not breaking up. Yes, we are, I said, effective immediately. You don't get to decide that alone. I do, I said, when you're the one who broke it. He stood, pacing now, frustration bleeding through. He suggested staying in the guest room, counseling, time, even hinted that I should help with money since I was forcing them out. No, I said to every version of it. You'll get formal notice, 30 days. That's when his tone sharpened. You're heartless, he said. You're punishing a child. I'm protecting myself, I replied, something you didn't bother to do. Later that evening, his daughter came to me. She stood near the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, eyes searching my face. Are you mad at us? She asked. That question almost broke my composure. No, I said immediately. I'm not mad at you, at all. But Dad said we have to leave because you don't want us here anymore. I felt the sting of it, how quickly he'd shifted the story. Sometimes adults have problems, I said carefully. That doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong, especially you. Her voice dropped. Was it because I asked for too many movies? My chest tightened. No, I said firmly. I love the movies. That wasn't the problem. He appeared at the top of the stairs then. Sweetie, he said, come on, let's give her some space. The way he said her, distant, detached, settled something inside me for good. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not because I was afraid, but because I was done sharing space with someone who had turned my kindness into cover and my home into a lie. And lying there in the dark, listening to a house that no longer felt confused, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about anger. It was about boundaries, and I wasn't going to let him cross another one. Monday morning didn't bring clarity. It brought friction. I woke up early, not from panic, but from a low, steady awareness that nothing in this house was neutral anymore. I could hear him moving around, opening cabinets, making coffee, acting like routine might overwrite reality. The normalcy felt deliberate, like he was testing whether I'd back down if he behaved as if nothing had changed. I didn't engage. Mid-morning, my lawyer called back. Her voice was calm, practical, unbothered by emotion. I appreciated that more than sympathy. Yes, she said after I laid everything out, because he's been living there over a year. He's established tenancy. That means you can't just change the locks or put his belongings outside. You need to give written notice, 30 days. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. The house is yours, she continued. You bought it before the relationship. There's no lease, no rent. That works in your favor. Do everything by the book. I hung up feeling grounded, not defeated. That afternoon, I typed the notice. Simple language. No accusations, no emotion. 30 days to vacate. When I handed it to him, he actually laughed. You expect me to find a place, pack everything, and move my daughter in 30 days? He said. That's not happening. Then I'll file for formal eviction, I replied. And you can explain to a judge why you think you're entitled to stay in your ex-girlfriend's house after cheating on her. Ex-girlfriend? He snapped. We're not breaking up. Yes, we are, I said, effective immediately. You don't get to decide that alone. I met his eyes. I already did. That's when the entitlement surfaced fully. He suggested staying in the guest room temporarily, then counseling. Then maybe I could help with a deposit since I was forcing them out. Each suggestion assumed I still owed him something. Patience, compromise, financial support. No, I said 30 days. His expression hardened. The next few days were miserable. He stopped contributing to anything. Groceries, utilities, household expenses. When I asked about it, he shrugged. Why should I pay for a house you're kicking me out of? Then you don't get the things you don't pay for, I said. I changed the Wi-Fi password that afternoon. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. He exploded. My daughter needs internet for school. Then pay your share, I said evenly. He accused me of being abusive, for changing the password on my own account, in my own house. I didn't argue. I documented it. 2 days later, he crossed another line. He texted me while I was at work. My sister is coming to help me pack and look for apartments. She'll be staying in the guest room. I replied with one word. No. He ignored it. I left work early. When I pulled into the driveway, his sister was unloading bags from her car. She looked surprised when I approached, like she expected hospitality. You're not staying here, I said. This isn't a hotel. She blinked. My brother said, Your brother doesn't own this house, I said. And he's being evicted. He came outside then, already defensive. You're being ridiculous, he snapped. She's family. She can visit, I said. She can't stay. The sister asked where she was supposed to sleep. I didn't answer. That wasn't my responsibility. When I explained, briefly, factually, why he was being evicted, her face changed. Whatever story he'd told her didn't include the affair. She packed back up and left. That night, I got a message from their mother calling me heartless, accusing me of tearing apart a family over a small indiscretion. I didn't respond. By midweek, his behavior shifted again. One day apologetic, cooking dinner, asking if we could talk. The next day hostile, telling his daughter I was being unfair. Watching him manipulate the narrative in real time was exhausting. Living under the same roof became unbearable. I slept with my door locked, avoided common spaces, took notes, saved messages. Then the eviction hearing arrived. In court, he showed up with a legal aid attorney. They argued hardship, a minor child, more time. My lawyer presented facts. Ownership, notice, no lease, no rent. The judge asked the question that mattered. Is it true you had an affair in the homeowner's bedroom? A pause. Yes, he admitted. And did you use your child to ensure the homeowner wasn't present? He tried to deflect. The judge didn't allow it. 9 days remaining, the judge ruled. Outside the courtroom, he was furious. Accused me of cruelty, of destroying his daughter's life. You should have thought about that, I said quietly, before you made the choices you did. That night, he finally started looking for apartments. And I understood something then. Escalation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the slow collapse of someone's entitlement, when manipulation stops working and accountability finally shows up. The days after the hearing were the quietest and the heaviest. Not because the tension disappeared, but because it settled into something constant, a pressure that followed me from room to room, like the house itself was holding its breath. He stopped arguing as much, stopped posturing. Instead, he moved through the space with a clipped politeness that felt colder than anger. He was counting days now. I could feel it in the way he checked his phone, in the way he avoided eye contact unless necessary, in the way his daughter grew quieter, like she was trying not to take up space in a house that no longer wanted her. That part hurt more than I expected. She stopped asking to go to the movies, stopped asking me questions. She did her homework silently at the table, eyes down, shoulders tense. Sometimes I caught her watching me like she was trying to understand which version of me was real, the one who used to laugh with her over popcorn, or the one who had become the reason her life was shifting. I wanted to explain everything. I didn't. She was 9. She didn't need the truth in its full, ugly shape. She just needed stability, and I couldn't give her that anymore without sacrificing myself. That reality sat in my chest like a weight. One night, I came home late from work and found him in the kitchen, packing leftovers into containers like he'd always done. The normalcy was jarring. For a second, I almost forgot why things were the way they were. Almost. We need to talk, he said, not looking up. I stayed where I was. What now? He sighed, rubbed his face with both hands, not crying, just tired, calculating. I can't find anything, he said. Places want first month, last month, deposit. I don't have that kind of cash. I waited. So, I said. He looked at me then, eyes sharp. So maybe you could help, just temporarily, for her. There it was again, using his daughter like a shield. No, I said. You're really going to let her suffer because you're angry at me? I'm not angry, I said quietly. I'm done. He scoffed. You're cold. I'm clear. He shook his head like I was the unreasonable one, like he hadn't detonated everything first. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. I thought about the version of myself from a year ago, the one who believed stability was enough, the one who thought being steady meant being safe. I felt stupid. Not weak, not naive. Just stupid for missing the signs, for letting kindness override boundaries, for confusing responsibility with integrity. The next morning, I got a text from the neighbor's wife. She apologized, said she'd filed for divorce, said if I needed her to testify to anything, she would. I saved the message without replying right away. Reading it made everything feel more real and heavier, because this wasn't just my mess. It was collateral damage spreading outward. Kids, families, lives rearranged because two people had decided their convenience mattered more than honesty. Later that day, he lashed out again, this time in front of his daughter. He accused me of ruining everything, of humiliating him, of making him look like a failure. I didn't raise my voice. I told him to stop. He didn't, so I walked away. That was the darkest part. Not the yelling, not the betrayal, not even the legal fight. It was realizing that the man I'd trusted didn't see what he'd done as wrong, only inconvenient. And standing in my own hallway, listening to his daughter cry quietly in her room that night, I questioned myself for the first time. Not my decision, but my capacity to live with it. I asked myself if holding the line was worth the cost, if protecting my boundaries justified the pain rippling outward, if there was a version of this where I gave in just enough to make it hurt less. The answer didn't come easily, but it came, because the truth was I'd already tried sacrificing myself once, and I wasn't going to do it again. The turning point didn't arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It came with paperwork. 3 days after the hearing, my lawyer emailed me a clean, final copy of the court order. Black text, white page, no room for interpretation. 9 days meant 9 days. Not 8, not 10, no extensions, no favors. I printed it and left it on the kitchen counter where he couldn't miss it. He stared at it for a long time when he saw it, read it twice, maybe 3 times. His shoulders didn't slump. He didn't break down. He just went very still, like someone realizing the game was officially over. That was the first time I felt the balance shift. Not emotionally, legally. That evening, he tried one last approach. He didn't yell, did not accuse. He waited until his daughter was in her room, then spoke quietly, like reason might still work where manipulation hadn't. "I made a mistake," he said. "I know that." I didn't respond. "It didn't mean anything," he continued. "It was just convenience. It didn't change how I felt about you." That sentence sealed it. "You used your child," I said. "You didn't just cheat, you planned." He flinched, but he didn't deny it. "We could still fix this," he said. "We don't have to involve the courts like this." "They're already involved," I replied, "because you left me no other choice." He leaned against the counter, jaw tight. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said. "I'm surviving it." Silence stretched between us. Then he tried one more time, his final card. "What about her?" he asked, nodding toward the hallway. "Don't you care what happens to her?" I felt the familiar ache rise, but this time I didn't let it move me. "Of course I care," I said. "That's why I won't lie to protect you anymore." He looked at me like he'd never really seen me before. That night, I forwarded the neighbor's wife's message to my lawyer. Documentation, witness, pattern. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being prepared. 2 days later, he finally started packing. Not angrily, not theatrically, methodically, clothes folded, boxes labeled. The house slowly shedding pieces of him. Every item that left made the air feel a little lighter, even as my chest stayed heavy. His daughter watched from the stairs sometimes, quiet and uncertain. I didn't approach her. I didn't explain. I let her father handle what he'd created. On the second to last day, he came to me with a box. "These are yours," he said. Inside were photos, trips, holidays, ordinary moments that used to mean something. His daughter smiling in the background of many of them. I took the box. "Thanks," I said. He waited, like he expected something else. Forgiveness, money, a delay. He didn't get any of it. The next morning, I scheduled the locksmith, the garage opener replacement, the deep cleaning. Not out of spite, but out of closure. I needed the house to stop holding echoes. By the time the movers were confirmed for the final day, something inside me had settled. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't debating. I wasn't wondering if I was doing the right thing. I was certain, because the truth had finally finished unfolding. And once it did, there was no version of reality where I let a man who used his own child as cover stay under my roof. That was the moment I took my power back. Not loudly, not cruelly, but completely. Moving day arrived like a deadline you can feel in your bones. The movers showed up early. 2 men and shamanin in a truck that looked like it had seen better decades. He supervised them like a project manager, clipboard energy without the clipboard, making sure nothing was missed. Every box, every bag, every piece of furniture that was his. I stayed out of the way, not because I was afraid of conflict, but because I didn't want to give him anything else to react against. No fuel, no drama, just space to let consequences finish doing their work. His daughter sat on the front steps most of the morning, arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't look at me. Didn't look at him much either. Just stared at the driveway like she was memorizing it. That was the hardest part. Around noon, he approached me with a small box. "These are yours," he said. Inside were old photos, trips we'd taken, holidays, smiling versions of us that felt like they belonged to someone else now. His daughter appeared in many of them, grinning, carefree, before Sundays became something else entirely. "Thanks," I said. "I meant it." He lingered, like he expected me to say more, to soften, to offer something, money, reassurance, time. "This is really it?" he asked. "You're really letting me leave with nothing?" You're leaving with everything you brought, I said. Your belongings, your car, your child. That's not what I meant, he said. I mean support, help, something to get us started. I met his eyes. You don't get financial support for cheating on me in my house. He shook his head. You're bitter. I'm practical. He tried one last angle. What about her? He asked, nodding toward his daughter. Don't you care what happens to her? Low blow. Of course I care, I said. But she's not my responsibility. She's yours. And you should have thought about her before you made the choices you did. He didn't respond to that. The movers finished mid-afternoon. The truck pulled away first. His car followed a few minutes later. Before he got in, he turned back one last time. You know this isn't over, he said. I'll tell people what you did, kicking out a man and his child. Go ahead, I said. I have court documents, messages, and witnesses. He hesitated, then got in the car. They drove away. An hour later, the locksmith arrived. Changed every lock. Front door, back door, garage, deadbolts. I paid without flinching. Peace of mind was worth every dollar. I walked through the house after that. It felt empty, but lighter. Like a sound had stopped playing in the background, and I hadn't realized how loud it was until it went quiet. Over the next few days, I found traces everywhere. A toy behind the couch, a stray sock, a mug with lipstick on it shoved in the back of a cabinet. I threw it all away, not angrily, methodically. The neighbor's wife stopped by once, brought a bottle and an apology card. She didn't need to apologize. Her husband's choices weren't hers. We stood in the driveway for a few minutes, two women who'd been collateral damage in the same story. He texted me once after moving out. Hope you're happy. My daughter's new school is terrible. This is on you. I blocked his number. Some mutual friends reached out, confused, concerned. One even tried to lecture me about compassion until I sent the court documents. Oh, she said, she left out a lot. I lost a few friends who believed his version without asking mine. That hurt. But it also clarified things quickly. The house settled into its new quiet. I deep cleaned everything. Hired professionals, new mattress, new sheets, new start. The fallout was real, but it landed where it belonged. Not on me. 2 weeks after they left, the house finally felt like mine again. Not because it was quiet, though it was, but because the quiet no longer felt tense. It felt earned. I walked through the room slowly, noticing the absence of things I hadn't realized were weighing on me. No half-finished conversations, no careful timing, no Sundays structured around someone else's convenience. I replaced the mattress, bought new sheets, cleaned every surface until the house smelled neutral again, like a reset instead of a reminder. It wasn't about erasing the past, it was about reclaiming the space. Work helped, routine helped. My boss noticed I seemed off and gave me a day without questions. I appreciated that more than advice. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Emotionally, it came in waves. Anger some days, relief on others, a constant undercurrent of, how did I miss this? But that question slowly shifted into something more useful. What did I learn? I learned that cheating isn't just about sex. It's about planning, about lying, about using other people, sometimes even children, to make it easier. I learned that stability without honesty is just a quiet lie. I also learned that boundaries don't make you cruel. They make you clear. Some people asked if I regretted the eviction timeline. 30 days. Court. Finality. No, he had time. He chose how to use it. I wasn't obligated to absorb the consequences of his choices just because he had a child. Protecting myself didn't mean I stopped caring. It meant I stopped enabling. The part I still think about is his daughter. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't ask to be used as cover. She didn't ask to move schools or lose a routine she liked. That reality still sits heavy with me, but it doesn't mean the responsibility was mine to carry. Some lessons are painful precisely because they're necessary. I'm not dating. I tried the apps for an hour and deleted them. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I'm not rushing that process. For now, being alone feels better than being uncertain. Financially, I'm fine. Better than fine. The house is affordable on my income alone. I'm saving more. I'm steady. And that matters. To everyone who reached out with support, thank you. It helped more than you know to be reminded that having standards doesn't make you heartless. It makes you self-respecting. If you're in a situation where something feels off, trust that instinct. Patterns exist for a reason. Don't let anyone guilt you into ignoring them, especially not by hiding behind their kids. I closed that chapter. The house is mine. My life is mine. And this time, I'm paying attention. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me through every uncomfortable detail of this story. I didn't share it for sympathy. I shared it because situations like this thrive in silence, because people who manipulate, lie, and hide behind their children rely on others feeling too guilty to speak up. If this story resonated with you, or if you've been through something similar, know this. You are not cruel for choosing yourself. You are not heartless for drawing a line. And you are not wrong for refusing to carry the consequences of someone else's betrayal. Boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. If you found value in this story, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more long-form, emotionally grounded stories like this, stories about love, betrayal, family pressure, and reclaiming power, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Your support is what keeps this space alive. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, take care of yourself.